Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Patterson, the president of the Crawford County Bar Association. And on behalf of the Crawford County Bar Association, I'd like to welcome everyone to the 2021 Statewide Judicial Candidate Forum. On the ballot this year, voters will be asked to fill 4 seats for our appellate courts in November. For the Supreme Court, there's 1 seat for the Superior Court, and 2 seats for the Commonwealth Court. Today, we have the honor of hosting 8 candidates for those appellate court seats and an opportunity to hear from each of the candidates. The Pennsylvania appellate courts consist of the Supreme Court, which is the highest court in Pennsylvania. It's also one of the oldest appellate courts in the United States, and it has discretion to take appeals from the lower appellate courts. The Superior Court is where appeals from most trial courts for criminal and private civil matters are heard. And the Commonwealth Court has jurisdiction over administrative and civil public law cases. The courts hear matters throughout the state in Philadelphia, Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, and other cities. Our guests today consist of 4 candidates for the PA Commonwealth Court, 2 candidates for the Superior Court, and 2 candidates for the Supreme Court. So we thank you all for coming and look forward to learning a little bit more about each of you. And Attorney Francis Schultz will now introduce our first candidate. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Judge Kevin Brobson, candidate for Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Judge Brobson is currently the President Judge of Pennsylvania's Commonwealth Court. Judge Brobson was elected by the citizens of Pennsylvania to serve on the Commonwealth Court back in 2009. He has served on that court for 11 years. His fellow judges on the Commonwealth Court saw fit to elect him as their President Judge of that court in 2020. Judge Brobson earned his bachelor's degree in accounting and economics from Lycoming College in 1992. He then went on to earn his law degree from Widener University School of Law in 1995. Prior to his election to the Commonwealth Court, Judge Brobson was an attorney in the Harrisburg area and worked at the Pittsburgh headquartered firm of Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Rooney. In his law practice, Judge Brobson focused on commercial litigation and administrative law. Judge Brobson and his wife Lauren have 3 children, and they reside in a rural community just outside of Harrisburg. It is my pleasure to introduce Judge Kevin Brobson, candidate for Pennsylvania's Supreme Court.
Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here in Crawford County. I want to thank Francis for that kind introduction. I want to thank the Crawford County Bar Association for having this event. I said to some of you that this is an amazing coup here in Crawford County. You get all the statewide judicial candidates here the same way it was in 2009 when I ran. So I'm really pleased to be back up here and to have this opportunity to speak with you and to speak with the voters about my candidacy. Well, my name is Kevin Brobson. I am the President Judge of the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania, but that's my job. That's not who I am. I was born and raised north of I-80 in Lycoming County, the son of a state trooper, the grandson of a Philadelphia City police officer. My parents instilled in me and my brother and sister the values of honesty, integrity, hard work, family, faith in God, love of country. These are the values that I have taken with me all throughout my life. These are the values that my wife Lauren and I, my wife of 23 years, are instilling in our 3 children. My oldest is Claire. She's a pediatric cancer survivor, 21 years old, and is a Seton Hill student where she's studying art therapy. My oldest son, Will, is 18. He's an Eagle Scout. I just dropped him off at George Washington University, along with all of the money I've ever saved my entire life. He actually took the oath of office as a midshipman last week in NROTC, so we're really proud of Will. My youngest is Gabe. He's the caboose. He plays football. He's 14 years old, and he's trying to get ready for the first game on Saturday, which I hope to attend in this heat. So I'm hoping he's hydrating wherever he is at this point in time. Entering this race for Supreme Court Justice was certainly not something that was on my radar screen. In fact, if you would have asked my wife Lauren and I in December of last year whether this was something we planned to do in 2021, we would have politely laughed and then offered probably a firm no. So what exactly changed? Why did I decide to do this? Was it personal ambition? Not really. Was it this deep-seated desire to travel the fairs and eat deep-fried stromboli? Definitely not, although it is really good. So what changed? So for me, I took a really hard look at the state of affairs in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I thought that I had something different to offer that can improve things, something different on our Pennsylvania Supreme Court. You see, too many Pennsylvanians still have doubt about the fairness and impartiality of our judiciary. Too many people in Pennsylvania still think that politics has invaded our judiciary. You know, when I ran in 2009, the concern was about kids for cash and the infamous pay raise. Now, there are many Pennsylvanians who question whether the Pennsylvania Supreme Court was too hot when it redrew our congressional district lines or issued a series of election rulings last year. Many other Pennsylvanians wonder where the court was when the government was deciding whose businesses are essential, when the government was deciding what businesses would get waivers to stay open and what businesses would have to close, when the government was allowing the big box stores to stay open but small businesses were closing, churches and synagogues and schools were closing. And you know, all Pennsylvanians, Democrats, independents, Republicans, want to have faith in a fair and impartial judiciary, and they deserve it. More of the same is not going to get us there. So before their election to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, all of our current Supreme Court justices came from either the Superior Court or the Court of Common Pleas. Now those courts do very important work, but most of what they focus on is they focus on making sure that people are following the law. I think Pennsylvanians are ready for a Supreme Court justice that cares just as much about government following the law as the government expects the people to follow the law. And as a judge on the Commonwealth Court for the last 11 years, over 11 years, and for 14 years in private practice, all of the cases that I have handled have dealt one way or another with a challenge to government action or government inaction. And while on the Commonwealth Court, I have not shied away from high-profile cases. I've ruled on cases dealing with gun rights, school choice, family farms, small businesses, issues dealing with our firefighters and our local law enforcement, school choice. It runs the gambit. And each time, what I've tried to do is stick to my conservative judicial principles, which is apply the law as written to the facts of the case fairly and impartially. And at the same time, I've tried to write opinions that are clear and concise so that not only the lawyers that are in front of me can understand why I did rule the way I did, but so the people of Pennsylvania can understand why I ruled the way I did. And in return for all of this, I've been honored to receive the faith and the confidence of the lawyers that have appeared in front of me and my colleagues on the bench. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court appointed me to be the sole appellate judge member on the Judicial Conduct Board of Pennsylvania, where the members of that body, Democrats and Republicans, elected me to serve as the board chair. The Pennsylvania Bar Association has awarded me its highest rating for the Pennsylvania Supreme Court Justice election this year. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court Chief Justice appointed me to chair a committee that was examining judicial ethics procedures in Pennsylvania. And finally, and what I'm really most proud of, is my colleagues on the Commonwealth Court just last year, even though I don't have the highest seniority on the court, elected me to serve as the 10th President Judge of the Commonwealth Court, Democrats and Republicans alike. Now, what you can see from this record, or what I hope this record shows, is that as your next Supreme Court Justice, I will not legislate from the bench. I will apply the law fairly and impartially, regardless of who is in front of me. I will not issue decisions that favor the government or favor one political party over another. I will exercise judicial restraint in matters committed to the other branches of government, and I will be a steadfast guardian of your constitutional rights and make sure that government follows the law. This is why I got into this race. This is that new voice that I offer on the Supreme Court, a new perspective. We only get an opportunity to elect Supreme Court justices every once in a while, and there are only 7 of them. And I'm hoping to offer that new perspective, that new background, that new experience on the state's highest court. So this is the part where my campaign tells me to plug my Facebook page, if you want to like me on Facebook, at Kevin Brobson for PA, or my website, www.brobson4pa.com, and ask that you just tell your friends about how important these elections are. They're critical. These elections shape the judiciary for decades to come. And the importance of that is not lost on the people of the room or the Crawford County Bar Association, because you have this event. And so I'm very grateful for that. So I humbly ask for your support. I humbly ask for your vote. And today, most of all, I want to set aside the election and just ask for your prayers for our servicemen and women serving overseas and for our law enforcement, because they deserve that and I will be praying for them. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure to introduce our next candidate. Judge Maria Mclaughlin currently serves on the Pennsylvania Superior Court, having been elected to that court in 2017, where she was the highest vote getter in that election. She attended Penn State University, graduating in 1988, becoming the first in her family to graduate from college. She attended Delaware Law School, receiving her law degree in 1992. She then served as the Assistant District Attorney in Philadelphia's District Attorney's Office for 19 years. In 2011, she was elected to be the judge of the Court of Common Pleas of Philadelphia County, where she presided primarily over family law and criminal law matters. During recent times on the Pennsylvania Superior Court, she coordinated and developed policies enabling the court to hold arguments during the pandemic. She often appears as an instructor and speaker for the Pennsylvania Bar Association, the Pennsylvania Bar Institute, multiple county bar associations, as well as primary, middle, and high schools and universities throughout the Commonwealth. The Judicial Evaluation Committee of the Pennsylvania Bar Association has given Judge Maria Mclaughlin its highest ratings of highly recommended. She and her husband, Jonathan Seidel, treasure their blended family, sharing 6 adult children and 4 grandchildren. Please welcome Judge Maria Mclaughlin.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the Crawford County Bar Association for hosting this event, the first one with all 8 of us in the same room, so thank you. And also, thank you for affording me the privilege of serving on our Pennsylvania Superior Court. I was here in 2017 and many times after, campaigning, but with a lot of bipartisan support, so with many of the folks in the room today, so I start off with a debt of gratitude. Thank you. You can Google who we are as a judge. That's the one great thing about being on the appellate bench. All of our decisions are transparent, and boy, I'm proud of my decisions. And so I just want you to know who I am as a person, because this is an election, and you're electing a person, Maria Mclaughlin. And so I am the first one in my family to go to college, and that was a big deal. You know, my father was an Army veteran and uneducated, and my mother was uneducated. So the fact that their firstborn was able to graduate from Penn State was a big deal. And it wasn't easy for them, and it wasn't easy for me. I had to work 3 part-time jobs, and I had a partial cheerleading scholarship to Penn State. And that was the only way I had a college education. So that's who I am. And so when I graduated college, I went to law school, and I worked my way through law school too. 3 part-time jobs, and graduated with a bunch of debt, student loan debt. But when I graduated with that debt, I decided to serve as a district attorney, and I was proud of that. I stayed there for 19 years and worked my way from the bottom to being one of the youngest female chiefs. It's not a big deal today, thank God, but it was back then. So for a district attorney to appoint me to run a division at 30 years old was a big deal. And I was proud of that. I'm proud of my service to our citizens. And from there, I always say the scariest thing I ever had to do in the district attorney's office wasn't prosecute anyone. It was resign to run for judge of the Court of Common Pleas, because it's exactly what I had to do. It was my only job as a lawyer for 19 years. And I was a divorced single mom of 2 boys with 70 vacation days in the bank. And I knew that that decision I made that day to lead by example with my boys is the reason that they're a chef in Italy and a volunteer in Zambia, Africa in the Peace Corps, because of that decision I made that day. And so I served on the Common Pleas bench. When I left that court, when I left the DA's office to run, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. I just gave up the only job I had for 19 years with 2 boys depending only on me. And I said I wasn't going to run. I lost my dad very young, and I had to take care of my mom, and I wasn't going to run. And unbeknownst to me, my mom, who just got done a chemo treatment, lost all her hair, stood with a baseball cap on her head outside a park in Philadelphia all weekend and got me every single signature I needed to be on the ballot for Court of Common Pleas. And she came home and said, Maria, you're running. I did, and I won. And I served there for 6 years. I did family law cases, I did criminal law cases, I did election law cases and labor law cases. I never missed a day of work. I sat in the largest judicial district in this Commonwealth and never had a decision overturned. I'm proud of that record. And so then I said, why not the Superior Court? And I ran with my mother up and down the chemo lounges at University of Pennsylvania because she said, now the voters aren't just from Philadelphia. They're from all over Pennsylvania, the doctors, the nurses, the patients. And I did that. And I tell you the stories about my mom for one reason, because I don't have my parents here today anymore. I am my mother. You need to know who you have at the top of your ticket, a fighter. And that's who I am for all Pennsylvanians, a fighter like my mom. And so then I went to all 67 counties. That's something no one else did in 2017 when they ran statewide. And I did it for two reasons. The first reason is the same reason I am here today, respect. If I'm going to ask you to support me in this election, I owe it to you to show up. And I did that in each and every county and spent time there. And the other reason is, quite frankly, just to be a better Superior Court judge. I don't represent just my county. I represent all of us. And I spent time in each and every one of those counties. And when the cases come before me, I know what is important because I did that. And so I'm just asking that when you look at who you're going to elect to the state's highest court, look beyond party affiliation. Look at Maria Mclaughlin, the prosecutor, the only prosecutor in this race. Look at Maria Mclaughlin, the trial judge, the only trial judge in this race, and an appellate judge. That's who I ask you to look to. Look to Maria Mclaughlin, who lost her parents too young and never left their side. That's the values they instilled in me and that I instill in my boys. My values aren't geographic. My values are from my parents. And I am proud that I don't just come around during elections. I just spoke to so many of you. I saw you in Erie teaching a class. I saw you in Luzerne County teaching a class. That's who I am. I am somebody, as a judge, statewide judge, who is out in our communities. So that's who I ask you. I also ask you to support me, a girl who came up in a row home from humble beginnings, who now has the ability to make history in Pennsylvania. Never in 300 years of this court, the oldest court, has there been a female majority. And I think that's important. I want to be able to show my granddaughters. That's what the Supreme Court looks like when your grandmother had the ability to serve on that court. Look at Maria Mclaughlin as a leader. Look at Maria Mclaughlin as your next Supreme Court Justice. Thank you, Crawford County, and thank you for having me.
Have to raise the microphone up a little bit. Before I introduce our next candidate, I do want to recognize Diane Adsett, the member of our bar. She's been organizing this event for 20 years, and if it wasn't for her hard work, we wouldn't be here today. I do 2% of the work, maybe 1%. She does the other 98 or 99. So if we could give Diane a round of applause and thank you. Megan Sullivan, candidate for Pennsylvania's Superior Court. Megan Sullivan has been practicing law for 20 years in Pennsylvania. She is a veteran litigator with vast experience as a criminal prosecutor and civil attorney. She has served as a prosecutor in the Chester County District Attorney's Office, a Deputy Attorney General in the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General, a litigation attorney in private practice, and General Counsel for West Chester University. While serving as an assistant district attorney in Chester County, Megan handled all aspects of criminal prosecutions and prosecuted an extensive range of crimes. As a deputy attorney general, she worked to protect citizens through her investigation and prosecution of insurance fraud committed by individuals and corporations in every industry throughout the Commonwealth. Megan earned her bachelor's degree in 1993 from St. Joseph's University, and she graduated from the Temple University Beasley School of Law in 2001. Megan lives in Chester County with her children Drew and Julia. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Megan Sullivan, candidate for Pennsylvania's Superior Court.
Thank you, Francis, for that lovely introduction, and thank you, Diane, for putting this together. This is a wonderful program. Good afternoon. I am Megan Sullivan. I am the Republican candidate for Pennsylvania Superior Court. Thank you, Crawford County Bar Association, for organizing such a wonderful event. I was talking to Judge Lane earlier, and we were both saying that we're both from the southeast of Pennsylvania, and it took Crawford County to get us to meet one another. So this is wonderful and speaks to your general principles that we need judges and we need to have qualified judges and have that information out about our backgrounds and what would make us the next best judge. So I think it's important for voters to have the opportunity to learn firsthand about the backgrounds and qualifications of each and every one of us. While judicial races are often called off-year elections, I believe that the last 2 years there have been a number of high-profile cases, both federal and state, that show and remind the voters that these elections and judicial appointments matter. Who people elect as judges is important. I am one of 2 candidates who will appear on the November ballot to serve as a judge in the Superior Court of Pennsylvania. I am a veteran litigator with over 20 years' experience in both criminal and civil law. I've argued cases before the Commonwealth Court and the Superior Court. That has provided me with extensive appellate practice, extensive knowledge of the appellate law, and an experience that makes me well prepared for an appellate court position. As a prosecutor for over 12 years in Chester County, I was a fierce advocate for victims and the citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. During my tenure as a Deputy Attorney General from 2017 until 2021, when I resigned in order to run for office, I investigated claims of insurance fraud, and I did investigations for corporations and individuals throughout the state. I also served for nearly a decade as an Assistant District Attorney in Chester County, and later as a supervisory district attorney. As a member of the DA's Child Abuse Unit, I prosecuted criminals who preyed on the most vulnerable victims in our society, our children. I'm proud of all of those efforts. That was what I like to call God's work, and it led me to always want to serve women, serve children throughout this Commonwealth. I'm proud also of being recognized for many of the cases that I tried in the Child Abuse Unit, both by the Chester County Crime Victims Association and many different police departments. Through my experience in the State Attorney General's office and the District Attorney's office, I handled all aspects of criminal prosecutions, ranging from child abuse to white-collar fraud cases. And I got to sit with a bunch of DAs and public defenders here today, and we know those white-collar fraud cases are so much fun, right? They take months and months and then months of trial. So I spent an extensive period of time in the appellate unit, most importantly, at the Chester County DA's office. For approximately 3 years, I argued in front of the Superior Court. I wrote hundreds of briefs, and I argued probably somewhere around 20 to 30 cases in front of the Superior Court, which I think uniquely qualifies me, and I think I'm the only candidate who can say that I have had that extensive experience in appellate court and with appellate law. In addition to my work as a prosecutor, I served as Assistant General Counsel to Westchester University. In that capacity, I negotiated contracts, did labor arbitrations, and I advised university administrators on federal and state regulatory law. I also spent several years in private practice, focused mostly on employment and civil rights, but I represented several businesses, municipalities, and educational institutions in a range of civil litigation. I was honored to receive the Pennsylvania Bar Association's Judicial Evaluation Commission rating of recommended for the position of PA Superior Court. That was based on my legal experience, my ability, integrity, and temperament. And that last point, judicial temperament, is often overlooked, but ever so important for every judge sitting on every bench. Here's what the PA Bar Association Judicial Evaluation Commission noted about my temperament. Quote, "She's very well regarded by her peers, being described as well prepared, open and honest, and collegial. Through my extensive work as a prosecutor, I gained incredible appreciation for the men and women in law enforcement. And personally, I have a brother who's a veteran police officer in Philadelphia, so I also have personal and professional experience with law enforcement, and I respect them very much. So this week, I was deeply honored when I received the endorsement of the PA Fraternal Order of Police, as well as the endorsements I received from other leading law enforcement groups, such as the Pennsylvania State Troopers Association, the County Detectives Association, and the Pennsylvania State Corrections Officers Association. That meant a great deal to me, and I am honored to have the endorsement of the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, as well as FOAC. Over the course of my campaign, I've worked to visit many communities. As I like to say, I've hustled across this state. But I believe it's important as a judge to talk to the people out there, to understand the perspective of every Pennsylvanian and the view that they have of the judicial system. By and large, and I think it's been spoken here already multiple times, they want a fair judicial system with access to all, but to be fair and balanced and objective. What I've also seen is many Pennsylvanians concerned about the rise in judicial activism and the infringement of the role of the legislature. They worry about the erosion of their individual rights and their constitutional rights. As a judge, my decision-making process will be guided by the laws enacted by the legislature, the Pennsylvania and United States Constitution, and also the facts of the case before me. My view, either political or policy-wise, will have no influence on the decisions that I make. Thank you again for having me here today. Please remember to vote on November 2nd. And for more information on my website, Kev, it's megsullivanforjudge.com. Have a great day.
It's my pleasure to introduce the next candidate, Judge Tamika Lane. She currently serves as a judge on the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas, having been elected in 2013, and she presides primarily over criminal law matters. Judge Lane attended Howard University and graduated in 1994. She then taught social studies to middle school students for several years before deciding to go to law school, where she received her law degree from Rutgers Camden School of Law in 2002. After law school, Judge Tamika Lane initially practiced in the family law area before transitioning her practice to one litigating criminal law matters. In 2009, she began a legislative practice where she drafted legislation, provided legal advice and guidance of the legal implications of legislation, regulation, and administrative policies. As a judge, she's presently assigned to the Major Trials Program in the Criminal Division, where Judge Lane handles human trafficking cases along with serious felony criminal matters and also investigative grand jury matters. Judge Lane was recently appointed by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to the County Adult Probation and Parole Advisory Committee, where she serves as co-chair. She's an adjunct professor at Harcum College, and she was also appointed co-chair for Advancing Civic Education, a program where judges and lawyers teach civics to high school students. Judge Lane was formerly a trustee at Bright Hope Baptist Church, executive director of the New Life New Member Ministry, vice president of the Hospitality Ministry, and Surviving to Thriving food programs. She also worked for Habitat for Humanity during Hurricane Katrina to rebuild houses. The Judicial Evaluation Committee of the Pennsylvania Bar Association has given Judge Tamika Lane its rating of recommended. Please welcome Judge Tamika Lane.
Wow, how do I go to Diane? I might as well just stay seated. That was awesome. Thank you guys so much for having me here, Crawford Bar Association. I think that this is tremendous that you were able to get all of us together. You already heard it's for the first time that we've all been in a room together, and I think this is fantastic. So kudos to each and every one of you. My name is Tamika Lane. You've heard a lot about my background, but I think it's important, as you've heard already, that you know about who I am as a person. I was born and raised in a working class family. My grandmother worked in the cafeteria. My mother is now a retired police detective, and my father was a veteran. He was a Marine. I had to make sure I say Marine because that's very important to him. He's deceased now. But I was born in a family where they stressed service. My grandmother had a saying. She would always say, "It's not about you, child," or "It's not about you, honey." And I think that was a great lesson to learn as a kid, that it's not about me. It's about others and how we can be of service to others. You've heard my resume. That's how I've lived my life. From being a public school teacher, where I taught 7th grade social studies, and any teacher knows that you do more than teach. I did cheerleading, field trips, everything else, so kudos to any teacher. After that, after law school, and in law school I was very busy. I specifically chose that law school because I was able to do pro bono work as a second year, and that was important to me, to work in those pro bono clinics. After law school and in the clerkship, you've heard that I was a certified child advocate. I was advocating on behalf of abused and neglected children. I was a litigator. I tried thousands of cases to verdict from start to finish. And I'm very active in the community. When I ran for judge, I stepped out on faith. I left my job, I sold my car, and that's scary because I was a single mom. But it was so important that I go that route so I can be of service to others. And on the bench, I've been very busy. I'm in the criminal major trial division, where I'm the only judge who does human trafficking cases in the 1st Judicial District. But I also do a lot of domestic and family violence. I do sexual assaults, rapes, all kinds of serious felony cases before juries, and some where I, the judge, make the decision. And I think it's so important when we talk about the Superior Court, because it's often the last stop for most people in Pennsylvania. Their cases are not going to go to the Supreme Court. They're going to stop right there. And who best can do that than someone who has done it day in and day out as a trial judge? When we look at the Superior Court, it's important that we look at that person who had real life experience. I am first generation college, first generation law school. When I was in college, for the summers, I put together boxes to try to get my money together for school. And like Marie, I also graduated with a lot of debt in doing that. But also, I am a cancer survivor. When I got sick, my mother had to move in to help take care of my daughter. And I'm a fighter. And I don't say that just for sympathy. I want you to know who I am as a person. I don't quit. I don't give up. I work hard. And even when I was sick, I was still trying to be of service to others. I'm still reaching out. I volunteer with the Cancer Hope Network because it's so important that we continue to be of service to others. On the bench, you've heard some of the things that I do. And also something that wasn't mentioned is that I was part of the Elder Task Force, making sure that our elderly, when they had to interact with the court, had a liaison, make sure that it was a system that they can help being navigated through, because our system can be so complicated sometimes. And we wanted to make sure that they had someone there to help them do that. And I think throughout this whole process, what is so important about these courts are the people who sit there. So often you go out and people are like, oh, it's a judicial election. Oh, they don't know who to vote for because they don't know us. That's why it's important to go out to all these counties. I've been to almost all of them at this point, and it is so important because wherever I go, everyone is so welcoming, and you want to talk and get to know them in that community, because as a Superior Court judge, these cases will come from all over Pennsylvania, and it's important to understand Pennsylvania and the different communities and the uniqueness, and to appreciate and respect them. As a judge in my courtroom, everyone is treated with dignity and respect. I don't care where you're from, what your zip code, how much money you have, or what you don't have. None of that matters. We all want the same thing. We all want a fair trial. We all want to be treated with dignity and respect, and we all deserve that. It is all of our rights. And that is why I'm here. It is a natural progression as a judge on the Court of Common Pleas where I sit now to go to Superior Court, where they hear all the cases from our bench. I've authored hundreds of opinions. I'm often cited for my legal writing. All of this is important when we think of who we want on this bench. We want someone who gets it. We want someone with common sense, and we want someone who is fair. That's what it boils down to. And I humbly ask you to support me on November 2nd, but I also beg every one of you to just go and vote. Doesn't matter who you vote for, but everyone needs to show up on November 2nd. But I want you to remember me. And since people already plug in their websites, let me do the same. I don't want to miss out. JudgeLane.com, and I'm on social media, Judge Lane for Superior Court. Please visit it, and you can read more about that, and you can hear about how I worked hard for everything I had in this life, and how grateful and appreciative I am to be here before you as Judge Tamika Lane. So thank you so much, Judge Lane for Superior Court.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paula DiGiacomo, and as a member of the Crawford County Bar Association, I'm pleased to introduce Stacy Wallace, who is a candidate for the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania. She proudly hails from McCain County in northwest Pennsylvania. She became an attorney in 2004 and is a practicing attorney in McCain County. She is president of the McCain County Bar Association, a small business owner, and she's a certified mediator in conflict resolution. She taught as an adjunct professor at the University of Pitt at Bradford and has served as a law clerk for the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. She is active in her community and church and excels in legal research and writing and is a bold advocate for the rule of law. Stacy resides in Bradford with her husband of 16 years and their 2 children, Lucas and Cora. Thank you.
Thank you, Crawford County Bar Association. I want to tell you, I have a notepad here, and the front says, "She is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughs without fear of the future." And I encourage all of the female candidates to remember that that goes to you as well. So as we go through this in times of stress, may we always be clothed in strength and dignity and laugh without fear of the future. My name is Stacy Wallace, and I'm a candidate for the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court. For those of you not in the room today, I'll take a moment and explain that that's one of the 2 intermediate appellate courts. So it's one of the 2 courts right below our state Supreme Court. If you live in Pennsylvania and you're registered to vote, you will see my name, Stacy Marie Wallace, on your ballot when you do go vote on November 2nd. I'm the daughter of a late Pennsylvania State Police trooper and a medical technologist. My mom is still alive, and she lives near me in McCain County, Pennsylvania. I'm the granddaughter of a World War II veteran, and I'm the wife of a small business owner. He owns an engineering firm in Bradford. My husband, Kurt, and I together have my son, Lucas, who's 11, and my daughter, Cora, who's 9. My son has a heart of gold. He could be a little nicer to his sister, but everybody else, he's very nice to, heart of gold. He leaves me messages that I can't bring myself to delete. So when I'm traveling around the state, he'll leave messages. This is pretty good for an 11-year-old boy. "Hi, Mom, I love you, I miss you, I'm proud of you, I'm praying for you." And my daughter, she's a little more of a pistol, but I overheard her telling some of her friends, she said, "My mom's gonna be a judge. You know, like Judge Judy." And then she said, "But nice." So hopefully I will be nice. That leads me to why I ran for court and why I became an attorney. So when I was in college, I was a broadcast communications major, and I was filming a video for the YWCA. I was in the basement and I saw a pamphlet for Northwestern Legal Services, which is headquartered in Erie, Pennsylvania. And that's the first time I realized that there was a way to provide free legal aid to low-income people in civil, not just criminal matters. So that prompted me to go to law school. And when I was in law school, I hung in my locker the phrase, "Seek justice, love kindness, and walk humbly." That has been my motto since the day I hung it in my locker.
That's my life motto, that's my motto as an attorney, and that will carry me through on the bench to seek justice, love kindness, and walk humbly. The Commonwealth Court deals with matters when the government, the state government and its agencies are a party to the lawsuit. I have significant substantive overlap in that area. So I own a law firm that I opened in 2012, although I've been an attorney for 17 years. And in general practice, as a general practitioner in a rural area, you practice all sorts of things. So at the beginning of my career, I did more family and criminal. The first trial I ever had was an oil and gas matter. But what's relevant to the Commonwealth Court includes the banking law and unemployment compensation, municipal law, and election law. I've actually trained other attorneys in election law matters. Also, speaking of other attorneys, they have hired me to write their appellate briefs. So other law firms have hired me to write appellate briefs, and that's in part because of the work that I did for the Superior Court in drafting decisions. In my time clerking at the Superior Court, never once did the judge that I worked for tell me my analysis or conclusion was flawed. I did learn as I wrote for him that I needed to change some things, like I still remember he hates commas. And I would get to the point when I was done with a proposed opinion that I would do a search for the word that, because he hated the word that. We actually came up in our chambers with a banished word and phrase list. When our time together was ending, I wrote him a story about the time we shared together, and I made sure I used every single banished word and phrase, and it was peppered with commas. And it did make him laugh. But the major point is that I got it right with the conclusion, the analysis and conclusion, and he taught me to write clearly because it's important for everybody to understand a decision that is written. I additionally have quasi-judicial experience, so I've sat like a judge in matters. I've sat as a hearing officer, a family law master, and a mediator in helping resolve conflict. But really what I'd ask people to consider and what sets me apart, because we're all qualified, the people that often fill the bench are sitting judges or past prosecutors. That's tremendous experience. I'm not saying it's not. But this court often makes decisions in panels of 3. Wouldn't you love to see one of the panels that have a judge, a prosecutor, and possibly a small business owner? I'm a small business owner from a rural area, and I think that my background would bring a refreshing perspective. Finally, I would like to explain that I'll have a restraining approach. And what I mean by that is I recognize that our Constitution has 3 distinct branches of government, and it's the court's job, it's our role to apply and not write or rewrite the law to get a conclusion that we want to reach. And when we're campaigning, we have to be careful to not just say what people want to hear, right? We have to remain transparent and truthful and accurate. So people get super excited when I say, we're going to follow the Constitution. The crowd goes wild. But then I say, but you don't get to have your cake and eat it too. If you want me to follow the law, I'm going to follow the law. So sometimes I'm going to reach a conclusion that you don't love. And if you don't love what the law is, you need to go through the legislative branch to change the law, because it's not happening with me. So somebody more politically savvy than me said you shouldn't tell people you're going to reach decisions they don't like. But my point is that you know she'll apply the law. And that's why I'm a safe bet for you. I'm safe for you to elect. Before I close, I just want to speak to you a concept, and that's that there is death and life in the word. What we speak carries with it death and life. And when I was growing up as a child, as a little girl, my dad, he's been gone 12 years, but he used to lift my wrist up over my head, and he would call me Judge Stacy. He would proclaim, Judge Stacy. I didn't even know what a judge was, or that you had to be a lawyer to become a judge. But I share this with you because parents especially, but humans, have such power in their words, and what you speak over your children matters. And I mention this now in the context of the crisis going on in Afghanistan, and that our hearts are breaking. And I just ask all of us, especially people outside of this room, to consider that there is life and death in our words. So be careful what you speak. You know, let's speak favor and prayer over the leaders of our country. Let's speak in a united manner rather than hatred. And that's my call to action, is so when you're watching this down the road and it, you know, just pause and think, what can I do? We all have decided to run because we want to serve people. That's what I chose to do. And I'm asking, please think, what can you do? So with that being said, please
please remember Stacy Marie Wallace on November 2nd. My name does not have an E, so you can go to stacy4pa.com or look me up as Stacy Wallace for Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court on the Facebook page. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Cagle, and it's my privilege to introduce Judge Lori Dumas, who has served as a judge on the Court of Common Pleas in Philadelphia since 2002. Judge Dumas graduated from Duke University in 1989 and North Carolina Central University in 1992. She's also a graduate of the Fels Institute of Government at the University of Pennsylvania. She began her legal career as a general practitioner litigating various types of cases, the majority being family law and criminal law cases. In her 18 years on the bench, Judge Dumas has handled juvenile, civil, and criminal cases and presided over thousands of trials. She also assisted in the creation of the Juvenile Human Trafficking Court, which provided services to youth who are victims of commercial exploitation. Judge Dumas has taught criminal justice courses at a number of colleges and universities, and she is a contributing author of the 2018 Pennsylvania Juvenile Delinquency Bench Book. Judge Dumas is currently co-authoring a digital resource in partnership with the American Medical Association. She's worked with a number of boards and organizations, and I am not going to go through the list because we'll be here for way too long. The Judicial Evaluation Committee of the Pennsylvania Bar Association has given Judge Dumas a rating of recommended. She is the mother of 2 children and a middle school student. Please join me in welcoming Judge Dumas.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a privilege to be here. Diane, thank you so much for all of your hard work, and thank you to the Crawford County Bar Association for allowing us to come and share a little bit about who we are and why we have decided to take on this great and important task. I first have to correct one thing in my bio in the presentation. I do have 3 children. There's 2 adults and 1 no longer middle school student. She told me I needed to change my literature because she's now a high school student. So she starts high school on the 31st, baby girl. So you've heard a lot. I mean, it's weird when you sit and you listen to everybody. This is the first time I've had an opportunity to hear everyone. You know, we hear some of our candidate speeches, and then, you know, but today really hearing the hearts and the experience and getting to know those people who are in the race that I didn't have an opportunity to know. It is humbling, but it is also, it's good because I know that Stacy said earlier when we first met, this is the first opportunity that she and I have actually met in person, Drew too, but, you know, she said, you know, if I don't win, at least I believe that you're a good person, and I would be okay with you winning because I believe in my heart that you're a good person. And to hear that from someone that you've never met before, that has only seen you on a Zoom screen or, you know, maybe read your literature or saw your website, that's a testament to, I believe, to who I am. I, like my colleagues, you know, we hail from Philadelphia. None of us were born with silver spoons in our mouths. You know, I'm from the inner city, just like Judge Lane and Judge Mclaughlin. And I wear that proudly because nobody in my neighborhood ever went to law school. Many of them didn't go to college, and none of them are judges. And so for me to stand in front of you today it's an honor, it's a privilege, and I am so happy to be able to say to my parents who are deceased, I lost both my parents during my first 10 years on the bench, that I'm doing what you wanted me to do, which was to continue the path that they laid for me. My mom was a single parent, although my dad was in my life. My mom did the hard work. She didn't have an education. She worked in a factory until to raise her children. She went back to school when she was in her 50s because that's how important education was to her. But she sacrificed her progress for her children to make sure that we had everything that we needed, even though we didn't have much. But she ensured that we had an education, we had a safe home, that we understood what it meant to be good but not good, right? She taught us that although we didn't have a lot, we were still good. But we also had an obligation to give back. And so my life of service on the bench and in the community is not something that's new. It is what I am made of. It is who I am. And it is something that I wear very proudly. Because in every decision that I have made over the past, now it's almost 20 years, it'll be 20 years in February. Every decision that I have made has always been, first and foremost, rooted in the law, because that's what we are all obligated to do when we're on the bench. I hear, rule of law and the Constitution. That's what judges are supposed to do. We're supposed to rule based upon what the law is. But we are also people. And to think that any of us who are currently sitting on the bench don't bring who we are to the bench, and if a judge tells you that, they're not being honest. They're not. There's absolutely no way that you can't bring who you are to the bench. You have to, unless you're just a robot. And I don't think any of us, I don't know any judges that are robots. So we bring our experiences. We bring our life experiences. We bring our experiences from other cases. We follow the law, but we also bring who we are at our core. And if our core is good, then we bring good to those decisions, whatever they are and however they fall. And if we're not good at our core, then we bring that too. And so you as attorneys, you know how important it is to have good judges on the bench. Good, those who are scholars of the law first, but also good in here. Because it's that combination that will help you to serve the people that you serve, your clients. And so when you hear us up here talking about, how we were brought up, how we were raised, and, our community service, and, my bio was read. I don't need to go through that anymore. I actually sat back there and I was a little, not embarrassed by it, but, I'm not a good talker about me because I don't rule my life that way. I have served on this court for this long with distinction because that is what I chose to do. I spent the majority of my legal career as a judge. I was only on the bench for about 11 years, even though I did all those other things. My life moved very quickly. I took the bench at 32 years old. And it has been a privilege and an honor to serve with distinction. I've not always made the right decisions. I've not always done the right thing or said the right things because you're learning as you go. You're learning as you go. But what I will say is that this almost 20 years of legal experience and life experience has prepared me for this next phase and this next step of service. I don't knock anybody for running for judge, whether you're a judge or not. But I believe that it is very important when you are going to a higher court that you have legal experience as a judge. It is not easy being a judge. And it's easier to say what I won't do when I get to the bench. But unless you've been there and you've sat in that chair and you've worn that robe and everyone is looking at you to make the decision at that moment when everything else is going on, because in a trial court it's very busy. It is very different than the appellate courts. except for the cases that on the Commonwealth Court you have to actually hear a trial. But being a judge is easier than just saying what I won't do when I get there. And lawyers know that. Because when I was running at 31, I wanted to change the world. I could find so many things about the bench that I didn't like, which is one of the reasons why I ran, because of the injustices that I saw. And I was bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. I was going to change the whole system. And I got in that courtroom, and that first day I realized the only thing that I was going to change or impact was what went on in my courtroom. That's it. And so I figured out how to do that, and I perfected that. And how did I do that? I didn't just sit and hear cases, but I found other things to do to be able to change the systems that I thought needed help, which is how I ended up creating the first juvenile human trafficking court in the United States. I don't say that to brag. I say that because judges, we go to the bench to do a job as a judge. But once we get there, and I'm sure all the judges in the room can attest to this, you figure out some things that you can do to make things better. And so by starting that court, I had the opportunity to not only serve victims that weren't being served, but I got an opportunity to go around the United States and talk to other judges and other stakeholders about how they can do the same types of things that we were doing in Philadelphia for our victims to help them to protect their children. So that wasn't just about Philadelphia. That wasn't just about Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas or Philadelphia kids. That was about kids all over the United States. To me, that's what the power that a judge has. Not just to sit at home and make decisions of guilt or innocence, but to use that power to garner support for issues that matter. Not legislate from the bench. That's not what I'm talking about. But when a judge calls a meeting about something that's important to that judge, people come. And that's how we were able to garner all of the support in Philadelphia for this particular court to help babies that were being overlooked. We didn't even know they existed, and they were right in our system. And so I am proud to run for the Commonwealth Court because I believe that my experience in every major trial division that I have had since I have been sitting on this court has uniquely prepared me for any case that will come through that Commonwealth Court. And even more so, those cases where stakeholders that I have already had the opportunity to work with, both on the bench and off the bench, to solve problems. Those stakeholders, DHS, the school district, our healthcare systems, we had to work with those entities. I've worked with those entities as a trial court judge. And not just hearing cases and not just resolving cases that were coming before me, but these are the types of cases that will end up in front of the Commonwealth Court. And what better person to sit than someone who has had the experience, not just the legal experience, but the experience in working with these stakeholders about issues that are germane to that particular court. I think we have a tremendous group of adults that are running for these seats. I don't really know how you guys are going to make a decision. I hope it's not based on anything other than experience, hard work, and your belief in each candidate that you decide to support, that they are going to do what's right based upon the law. Based upon the law, but also based upon what's in here. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you today. It's my first time in Crawford County, and I am hoping that it will not be the last. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Lori Dumas, the Commonwealth Court.
I am pleased to introduce Judge Drew Crompton, who is a candidate for the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania. He was born and raised in Montgomery County. He graduated from Dickinson College and Widener Law School and has been a practicing attorney since 1993. Judge Crompton was appointed to the Commonwealth Court in 2020 and currently serves there. Previous to his appointment to the Commonwealth Court, Judge Crompton was counsel to the Senate Republicans. Judge Crompton lives in Silver Springs Township with his wife of 17 years and 2 children, Mallory and Morgan. Judge Crompton looks forward to continuing to serve as judge on the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania. And please join me in welcoming Judge Crompton.
Thank you. I was sitting there trying to decide whether it was worse to go 7th or worse to go last, but I think 7 might be, at least they know we're reaching the end, David, when you speak. It's an honor to be here today. I also want to cast my thoughts and prayers for the troops. Thank you for the Bar Association. Thank you, Paula. I will laugh that I watched Diane when she was told that she did 98% of the work and you nodded throughout the entire thing. So she really did do 98% of the work. It's an honor to be here. As I said, you heard a little bit about my bio. Mallory and Morgan, I don't know, my 2 daughters, ages 9 and 14. I also have an upcoming high school student. It's a little hard for me to say that, but they will be happy or maybe mortified that they got a shout out by name. I've told a couple people today that it doesn't really matter what Dad does. None of it's very cool. Be on TV, interviewed, work in the Capitol, and even be a judge. It really doesn't matter. The only thing that matters to them is Dad is a part owner of a very small chocolate company, and that at least gets some kudos from the 2 daughters. I will say for the record that the company is in blind trust. I have no participation in it now and currently, but that at least warms their heart that Dad at least did some good. It's an odd thing, being the oddball of the bunch, if you will, being a sitting judge on the Commonwealth Court, seeking a spot on the Commonwealth Court. As it was mentioned this morning, or just a few minutes ago, I was appointed for a 2-year term. My term ends in January of 2022, and so I am running for the seat that I currently have. Some people sometimes stop me when they hear that spiel, as confusing as it is, and go, well, you're up for retention. And I go, no, if you want a 10-year term, you have to run. I'm part of the election like all the others here today. As you heard, the Commonwealth Court hears a very diverse group of issues, but I thought I would just focus on one set. Yes, we do all things government, both local and state. My experience, as I'll get to in a minute, I believe bodes well for that type of position. I will say parenthetically, I tell some people, I don't believe I have the skill set to be a Superior Court judge. That is not who I am. I was not a prosecutor. I did not practice that type of law or even other types of law that currently are under the umbrella of the Superior Court. But I come to you today with a unique skill set, and one that I hopefully will be persuasive in telling you why it marries well to the Commonwealth Court. I think we have a decent understanding of the types of cases that Commonwealth Court hears. I like to say that it's government law. That's not quite precise, but it's similar to what we hear: elections and local zoning board and Department of Revenue and right to know and all those things that are related to state and local government. But one of the things we also do is something that I have been a little colloquial in, is as Commonwealth Court judges, we also referee what I call sandboxes. And what I mean by that is sometimes in original jurisdiction cases, we're asked as the Commonwealth Court to referee the branches of government, the judicial branch, the legislative branch, and the executive branch. As odd as it might sound, I've actually now served in all three branches of state government. I worked for a very long time, and I'll get into that, in the legislative branch, but I also served as counsel to two different sitting lieutenant governors. And now, as I said, I am in my third branch of government in the judiciary. But why is that important? Because hopefully I can come, and I have come over the last year and a half as a sitting Commonwealth Court judge with the right perspective of the sandbox disputes that we often get, and quite frankly seem to be a little more often than we used to. And I've also been in front of the Commonwealth Court and the Supreme Court when I worked in the General Assembly for my tenure, to tell judges not to be in this sandbox or that sandbox. This is the legislative branch. This is the executive branch. This is the judicial branch responsibilities. I know sometimes that sounds a little elementary, but it's very important that if we're going to have trust in government, that all three branches understand where their lanes are and where their responsibilities are and where they're not. I think I've been a judge, and I've shown in the 125 opinions so far that I've written over the last 2 years that I know how to stay in my lane as a judge. I am not going to do anything that is the powers that are of the legislative or the executive branch. I've also made some hard decisions. I have defended the executive branch, and I've defended the General Assembly, even when maybe political pressure would indicate otherwise. Why? Because I think if we're going to have a state government based on the Constitution, we need to ensure, and the Commonwealth Court is where it starts, that each branch of government stays in its lane. I've written hundreds of laws during my service in the General Assembly. I've worked on dozens and dozens of regulations, and quite frankly, that is what it was my skill set as general counsel in the Senate. Yes, I litigated cases in front of the Commonwealth Court and the Supreme Court, but a lot of it was actually drafting law. And a lot of what we get as judges in the Commonwealth Court is state law and state regulations where, as I mentioned, I believe is part of my skill set. I don't do a great job talking about myself in the sense that I don't really enjoy it. I'd rather my work show for itself. As a judge, as one of the speakers indicated, that's the cool part about being a judge. All your opinions can be easily read and easily accessible on the websites. My work, I hope, speaks for itself. It's thoughtful, it's well-reasoned, and something that I've instilled upon my clerks over the last 2 years. We don't editorialize. We say what the law says. We break down what we believe the fair and appropriate interpretation of the law is, and we don't add flavor or color or editorializing. I believe that is not the function of a judge. Some get tempted to do that. Some want to make a point. I do not. I've scaled back many decisions, draft decisions over my day, to make sure that what we put out under my name says what it says, nothing more and nothing less. Look, one of the things that's probably, and I'll close with this, one of the most important parts of my resume, if you will, is I'm a third grade basketball coach. I can't believe that was left off of my intro, but look, my family's very important to me. My daughters are very important to me. And quite frankly, besides owning the candy company, third grade basketball coach might be more important than who I am professionally. JudgeCrompton.com is the website. I'm not sure I've ever promoted that before, but I promote it here today. I do hope that the voters look at my record, look at who I am, and decide that I am worthy of keeping another 10 years. It is my honor to be here. It's nice to meet all of you, and it is good to be in Crawford County. Take care.
So I think what I heard Judge Crompton say is that they saved the best for last. Speaking of those who get to editorialize, it's my pleasure to introduce Judge David Spurgeon. He is a judge on the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas. When I told him that I would be doing his bio, he told me he was kind of sorry because it's boring. For an attorney, maybe for an average person, for an attorney, I don't think boring includes serving in a district attorney's office for 18 years, being the youngest person promoted to the position of deputy district attorney in the office, handling domestic violence trial unit involving cases where women and children are abused, assisting in the creation of a veterans court or a mental health court, being a national expert on domestic violence and being a judicial fellow on the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges. He's also gone on TV to discuss the impact of COVID-19 on family violence. And he has a lot of involvement in the community. Again, I'm not going to go through all of that. So if that's boring, I guess all of law is boring. He told me that what I should really just say is that he's awesome. So please join me in welcoming Judge David Spurgeon.
So I think I've already been set up that I'm the last, and probably what's standing between you and billable hours or big cases on your desk. So I promise I'll be brief. I am Judge David Spurgeon. I am one of the candidates for the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court, and I'm very excited to be here because I get to see a bunch of people. I got to see Francis, who was a year ahead of me in law school. I got to see Kevin, who I interned with in 1993. So it was great to see a bunch of familiar faces. I serve in the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas, and I've been there for the last 5 years. And I was appointed to that position, and then I too had to run. And I was appointed unanimously by both Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats for that position. And I've loved every minute of being a trial judge. It's been amazing. It's been absolutely amazing. But that's been part of my entire life, public service. That's where I come from. And we heard a lot about parents today, and it's nice. And I'm sure all of our parents, the ones that are still with us or the ones looking down on us from heaven, would be thinking, wow, I really did make an impact on these kids. This is a pretty good thing. But something my mom used to say to me all the time was, that which much is given, much is expected. And that is what I have lived my life with. And I know that I am very fortunate to be where I am standing today, because that was probably not the plan for me where I came from. So I grew up outside of a city called McKeesport, which you may have heard. It's on the news quite a bit. And it was once one of the steel capitals of the world. And my dad was a good union guy who worked for the railroad. And like all of our neighbors, we did very well. We were very financially secure. And then when I was in about 5th grade, the steel mill industry collapsed and our world changed. It changed to the point where my dad, who was working 80 hours a week if he wanted to, was now unemployed. He was laid off. My neighbors who were doing great things and buying hunting camps up in Crawford County, in fact, and other places, were now standing in unemployment lines and food bank lines. And so that's how the world changed for us. And I think that's a very interesting perspective that has shaped me as well. And I tell you that because I think to understand the impact that you make, you have to have something and lose something to understand the decisions that judges make every single day. Because your decision that you make affects the people that come in front of you. I will tell you that probably I would not have been dreamed of at that point as you looked at my family makeup and the amount of money that we had, and my parents probably laying in bed at night wondering how the mortgage payment was going to get paid or the light bill, that would one day imagine that their son would ever be a lawyer or a judge or a law professor at Duquesne Law School, where I've taught for the last 9 years, or now the Democratic nominee for the Commonwealth Court. But I think what would have impressed them the most was, out of all of that, I'm the only candidate that received a highly recommended rating by the Pennsylvania Bar Association. And that would have been what they were most proud of, because they knew that if they had told me over and over again, if you do everything right, things will work out for you. If you study hard, if you are a good person, things will work out for you. And then when they do, it is your turn to give back. And that's what I've shaped my entire life on. I went to the DA's office out of law school just about directly. And I stayed for 19 years. And I will tell you, I made $30,000 a year. It was not the high-end job that anybody thought that they should go to. In fact, the job paid so little that we were actually unionized. So I spent 11 years as a United Steelworker, like generations before me coming out of the steel mill industry, because they didn't give raises to the public defenders or the DA's office. So they unionized together and became a collective bargaining unit. And I never planned on staying that long. You know, as I said, it paid $30,000 a year. I had mountains of student loan debt as well. But I found my niche in trying to make lives better for other people. And I think that's what we all are trying to do. I advanced very quickly in the office. I became a very accomplished trial lawyer, trying homicides very, very soon, to the point where I was named the youngest deputy district attorney in Allegheny County history, where I led multiple units. And I became a supervisor, making decisions for other impacts and other judges, or other DAs, and appearing in front of all kinds of judges and being involved with that as well. I led the domestic violence unit. And that was something that really shaped my career. Because coming from McKeesport, I always had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. I always felt like I was being bullied by the wealthier kids, the wealthier communities, the wealthier school districts. And I was able to be an advocate for victims who were being bullied by somebody that told them that they loved them. And that was a really, really big deal for me. And I was asked to go for 6 months, and I stayed 15 years in that unit till I ultimately ended up leaving it. And I became a national expert in that area. I literally appear on court TV talking about domestic violence on a variety of different impacts because people needed to understand that this wasn't a women's issue. This was a community issue. This was a societal issue. This was something we needed to talk about. And because I took on those leadership roles in the office, I got to do a lot of great things. I got to see problems in our court system, and we have a big court system. You know, I was one of, I think, 112 attorneys in that office, and we have 43 judges, and there were lots of cracks in the system. So when we saw people that were routinely getting arrested with mental health issues, we saw people go as a revolving door between the criminal justice system, we found a way to start a mental health court, which has become a nationally awarded mental health court that tried to stop that, try to give people the services that they need, and to treat people individually. And that's what we do as judges. Every case that comes in front of us should be treated individually. And based on the success of that, I helped create Veterans Court in our county, which is probably one of the things I'm most proud of in that county, is Veterans Court. Because when I was growing up, there was a guy down the street who served in Vietnam who came home different than when he left McKeesport. He came home with what we now know as PTSD. And when he came back, he was not the same person, to the point that his family ended up leaving him. If the police were ever called on our street, that was probably because it was that house. But that house was a couple doors down, and he ended up taking his own life. And that was because of untreated PTSD. So after this 20-year war that we've been involved in, we saw so many people coming back to Allegheny County as veterans with untreated PTSD and traumatic brain injury, and they were getting involved in the criminal justice system. And so I've always thought of him and channeled him when we were coming up with that type of program. How do we stop that? And that's what we want to do, right? That's what judges want to do. My entire career has been dedicated to public service. That's all I've ever wanted to do, was to serve the public. And that has been demonstrated through my entire career. But I think it's important that we know that people are bringing themselves to the bench, and other people have said that. And I think we also need to know that the people that we elect are going to be there for a very long time. You know, all of us are relatively the same age. We have decades that we could serve on the bench. And as someone else said, you know, this is not, these openings don't happen very often. It's not like every year, oh, there's going to be 5 openings on the Supreme Court and 3 openings on the Commonwealth Court. They don't come very often. So it's important that we put people there. It's also important that we put people there that are proven. I am so happy to tell you, I told you I had the highest rating of the Bar Association, but I also am happy about that rating because it also involved community members. It's a nonpartisan group that makes these decisions that are lawyers throughout the state, but it also includes lay people that are looking and trying to help shape the judiciary. And that's something that's very, very important, because that's truly what we do, is we serve the community. And that's something that I have strived to do my entire career, and that's what's motivating me to move to the next level, because I think I can make a bigger impact, not just Allegheny County any longer, but I can make an impact on a state level. And that's my goal. So I do thank you for allowing me to speak to you for a few moments today. I would appreciate support as well. Judge Spurgeon for CommonwealthCourt.com, Judge Spurgeon for Commonwealth Court on Facebook, every other social media. But I know that you've taken the time because you want to make sure that there are good judges on the bench. And I am proud to be one of your options. And I just ask for your humble support, and I ask you to know whatever decision that you make, I will continue to serve this state in some capacity, always trying to advance the lives of our Pennsylvanians. So thank you.
with that, that is the conclusion of our 2021 Statewide Judicial Candidate Forum. I'd like to thank you on behalf of the Crawford County Bar Association to all of our candidates for coming and sharing a little bit more about yourselves today. I encourage everyone to check out the websites and the social media platforms that the candidates presented to get some more research and more information about each candidate. And I encourage all of our voters to go out in November and make a selection and vote. Our democracy works best when everyone takes time to participate in it, so please go vote. Thank you.